This is what Jeff Adams writes. My encounter started at 8 a.m. back in 1983. We lived about 500 yards from two sets of woods owned by three different landowners. One set of woods was about 400 yards long by 400 yards wide. In the middle of these woods was a pasture and field that kept 4 horses. In 1983, I was 17 years old. I loved hunting and exploring. On this occasion, I was out squirrel hunting. I was in the woods for about 10 minutes when I saw a squirrel. I stalked it and finally treed it. Got it with a single shot with my 16 gauge. When I went over to collect the squirrel, that's when I heard a loud scream. I thought maybe I had shot the landowner. But how could I hit the landowner when I shot up into the air at the squirrel? I always make sure of my target and the background area. I looked around for about 30 minutes and everything went back to normal. Then I saw another squirrel and began to stalk it. Soon I had a clear shot and checked the background and took the second shot. It fell from the tree. When I went to collect that one, I heard a scream again, a lot closer this time. After collecting it, I decided to try and locate the source of the screams. I headed to the fenced-in field that held the 4 horses. When I got to the field, the horses were all huddled together, approximately 10 feet from my right. Their ears were standing up like they were alerted to something. To my far left in the tree line, about 300 yards on the far side of the field and pasture, the horses were sniffing the air, stamping and pawing the ground. They would look at me, then look at the far tree line over and over again. Me, then the tree line. Their eyes showed true terror. Then that scream again, and a tree started to shake back and forth. I decided to backtrack out of the area. Then I basically circled around the field and used this creak to mask my movement sound to try and get behind whoever was on the far side of the field. After 30 minutes of slowly stalking, I got out to look around. I made it to a T-junction where two creeks met, forming a T. At this point, I'm holding 2 squirrels in my left hand and I have my 16 gauge across my left forearm. I'm looking around and start to hear this thump, thump, thump sound coming down the hill in front of me, about 20 feet away. At this time, I had not known what a Bigfoot was. I thought a very large Ape-man had escaped from a zoo. We made eye contact. It was huge and slowly swayed side to side. It was dark, rusted brown in color, and very huge, no neck, and wore no clothing. It was a male. It would slowly open and close its hands. I looked to the right down the creek and saw nothing. Then to the left down the creek from where I came and saw nothing. I knew a rock wall was behind me. I was boxed in. When I looked at it again, it was copying what I had just done, looking back and forth. We stared at each other for a solid 5 minutes, and for some reason, I thought it looked hungry. So I dropped one squirrel to the ground and tossed the other squirrel towards the Bigfoot. It squatted down, never taking its eyes off me. It picked up the squirrel and began to sniff and lick it. It then put the squirrel in its left hand, looked to its left, and stepped over a 5-foot wide creek and began to walk away. Stupid me began to follow it. I had to walk into the creek and then up the other side. We kept watching each other while we walked parallel, side by side, 20 feet separating us. 4 of my steps equaled one of his. There was no stinky smell either. After around 10 minutes of walking, we came to a large harvested cornfield that was 600 yards long by 300 yards wide. When we made it to the tree line, we looked at each other and it walked into the field. I decided to keep following it to see where it was headed. It turned and got very angry toward me. I started to slowly back away. It turned and walked away, looking around. I went back and picked up the other squirrel and headed towards my grandparents' house. When I got there, they were at their picnic table eating watermelon. I told them about the hairy ape-man I saw. My grandmother laughed at me, but my grandfather had a blank look on his face. He asked my grandmother to invite or call the landowner over for some watermelon and a family meeting. 30 minutes later, the landowner showed up and my grandfather asked me to tell the landowner what had happened. When I finished, the landowner asked my grandfather to join him in private. They walked around the yard for a bit, just talking. The landowner said he did not mind me hunting on his property, but he didn't ever want to go back where that thing was. That told me they knew it was back there. This happened in 1983. Then in 1984, our family moved away, about 15 miles away. I then graduated in 1986. I still pass these woods monthly to this very day. I guess I'm still drawn to them. The woods are around 5 miles in diameter, very big and thick. In 2019, my cousin got chased out while deer hunting by something. He never saw it, but heard it. He's an ex-Army Ranger and he fears nothing or no one. Looking back on the 1983 event, I was under the impression that it was probably hunting those horses. That's why I gave it one of those squirrels. I should have gave it both. RMS responds and asks, that Bigfoot you saw probably has a territory of 50 to 250 square miles and comes into that 5-mile square diameter set of private land woods when it's traveling from point A to point B. Because it's private, there's hardly any people ever there, and it also has resources it needs for a short stay before it moves to where it spends most of its time. A creature as large as a Bigfoot needs a large territory, and in my experience, it rarely stays in one location longer than 6 months. However, they may come back the next year or the year after to a prime location. How long ago or when did you document both these amazing tracks? Jeff continues, it was 2019. It was a Wednesday while I was coming from a doctor's appointment. Yes, I agree. I think he passes through the area. RMSO asks, were the tracks in the 5-mile set of woods where your sighting happened back in 1983? Jeff responds, we have plenty of food and water resources in that area. I saw it in 1983 and my cousin had his weird experience in 2019. Yes, the tracks were on the outside edge of the woods about a half a mile from my encounter location where I took those pics. It's now a cornfield. Ginormous Sasquatch tracks found and documented in southeast Indiana, along with an intense encounter with this elusive giant creature. Jeff Adam writes RMSO and sends us these amazing photos of both left and right Bigfoot tracks he found after pulling over near his old homestead. Because of the long drawn-out Bigfoot encounter and up-close sighting while he lived at this homestead and other people's encounters here, he keeps an eye on the 5 miles of heavily forested area around the old homestead. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. Hit the bell button so that you get the 2 or more new videos we post each week. Jeff writes, I found this trackway in 2019, a total of 6 tracks. They measured 18 inches long and 6 inches wide by 4 inches deep. The stride distance between tracks were 70 inches. The Bigfoot in question is a male, about 8 feet 3 inches tall. I measured a tree branch that he brushed up against while he walked under it. Weight is about 8 to 900 pounds. This is a very thick wooded area. It's about 5 miles in diameter. A total of 5 people have seen this Bigfoot. RMSO asks, wow, 5 people have seen them that you know of? Is there any other Bigfoot aside from this one in the area? Is the other footprint photo from the same individual Bigfoot? Jeff continues, it was in 2019. It was on a Wednesday while I was coming home from a doctor's appointment. I had to take a leak and saw them. RMSO responds, examining these tracks, they appear to fit the dimensions of the hundreds of Sasquatch impressions our team has found over the last dozen years. I am impressed with the evidence of the immense weight of the subject sinking in so deep that it leaves an upheaval compression ring around the entire track. I hope you guys enjoyed a look at these amazing footprints, deep impressions by something big and powerful at a Bigfoot sighting location. Great sighting report. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.